All right, good morning. All right, so in our first demo, we showcased the power of dev boxes, and developers can quickly start using those pre-configured machines in the cloud equipped with essential tools like Visual Studio. In the same way that dev boxes provide that pre-configured development machine, deployment environments provide that complete set of infrastructure necessary to run that application workload. And just like dev boxes, deployment environments can be self-served through the developer portal, and they can even be created via the command line and used for your pipelines. Using deployment environment, devs don't have to learn all the ins and outs of Azure and potentially creating the wrong resources or over-provisioning infrastructure or even misconfiguring a service, inadvertently creating a security exposure. So here I am in what Mark started with in these dev boxes, and I'm going to go over to the podcast app. And as a platform engineer, when you set up a project, you're really configuring that self-serve capability that enables those developers to build and experiment quickly. So we talked about a little bit about dev pools. So how easy is it to set up one of those boxes for our dev pools? So here, I've got a number here. I'm going to go ahead and create one in our portal. And first off, I'm just going to set up a name, and we'll just call this maybe front end, VS. And we need to make sure that we follow our naming conventions. And then next, we have our dev box definition. And now the dev box definition here, it really defines our CPU, RAM, and the base image and size that we're going to have for the box. This would include things like Visual Studio, 256 megs of RAM, things like that. We probably want gigs. And then next, we have our network connection, and this is going to define our location, where we're at, maybe where our developers are at, our resources, et cetera. And you'll notice that some of these here actually define a VNet. This is sometimes we need access to our local resources on-prem if we're connecting to those. And then we want to look at what's the type of privileges that we want that particular user to have. A standard local user or an administrator. There might be some additional resources that they need to install on the machine, tooling, et cetera, to do their job. And then as Amanda mentioned previously, we want to control those costs and shut down those boxes when they're not in use. So if I'm setting a stop time here, maybe in San Diego, my developers might be in Zurich, I want to shut that down when they're done with their workday so that those machines just aren't spinning in the cloud, costing me money as a platform engineer in my company. And then finally, these machines are automatically enrolled into Intune, and they're managed using the same policy you use for any of the other devices on your network. So we'll cancel all that. All right, next we'll talk about our environment types. And you'll notice I've got a dev, test, and prod environment, and those are assigned to the subscriptions in my particular company here. And up until now, we've talked a lot about giving developers a way to self-serve those development machines. But what about all that infrastructure that the developers need to run that application? As platform engineers, you enable developers to create that infrastructure needed using the deployment environments. Now, a deployment environment type is a definition of the set of Azure resources, and those are specified using infrastructure as code or IAC templates like ARM or Bicep or Terraform. And these templates, they live in a Git-based repository, and they can be added to a project. And this enables our developers to create that infrastructure that they need through the developer portal and through their workflow. I can simply add that. Now, I might have a new front-end team that's coming onto our project, the podcast app, and they're going to be working on the front end. And I want to make sure that their work is assigned to the proper subscription. I obviously have access to a lot of subscriptions here. And I want to make sure that they have the right role when they're doing their work. I might only want them to be a contributor on a specific subscription. And then I can add additional access or tags based on those particular roles. So I can really control their work based on the type of jobs that they're performing.
And the tag kind of allows you to actually track like the project that they're working on as well, right?
Correct, and I can do some queries and things in dashboards and kind of watch the workflow of that work and cost control as well.
Awesome.
All right. So finally, after I've added that, we want to look at our actual environments. We talked a lot about the infrastructure. You showed a very scary map of the infrastructure for the podcast app.
Yeah.
And how do I control that when somebody's doing that work to make sure that everything is spun up for them and they're not doing too many key vaults or too many Azure container apps. It's going to cost us money. So what we do is we've set this up here for them. And for the podcast project, we've configured a DevOps task to create a new deployment for each branch that creates that isolated collection of infrastructure for that development. If they do a PR, we want to make sure that we run that through a load test and make sure we meeting certain SLAs. And then when that's all done, that gets burned down or taken out of the infrastructure, and it's not costing us extra money.
Awesome. So the developer doesn't really have to think about taking that infrastructure down.
Just have to check in code.
Awesome.
And that enables us to effectively manage our environment and really increases our developer velocity.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you, Shayne. Well, I'm excited to announce, thanks.
Okay, so what we did in the first one, we kind of talked about a little bit about how we set up all of these boxes to make the developer productive.
Yeah.
And now, as a developer, I want to make sure that all of that stuff is set up and has security and my productivity and all of the quality things are set up for us.
Right. So you were wearing like a different shirt a minute ago.
I was a
right?
platform engineer, now I'm a developer.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Changing roles on the team. Okay, so for the podcast app, what we've done is we've actually partnered with a third-party service to customize the category text and description based on a specific user. So by tailoring that content, we're kind of hoping that we can get some more subscribers to our service.
That makes sense.
Okay, so I've got our Visual Studio here, and I'm actually going to look for our little HTTP code that I'm looking for our, here we go. All right, so category client here. And what I've got is this actually will invoke our category client, that third-party service, pretty simple HTTP client. I'm going to go over to my categories API and uncomment that code that I was testing earlier. Make sure I use the right keyboard. Got a lot of things going on back here. All right. Now that I've got that code in there, I'm just going to go over to our Git changes, and I'm just going to say add my category service. And I'm going to check in that code, and because my platform engineering team set up that CI system for us, it'll scaffold out all of that production system stuff that I need. It replicates there and run our stuff for us. So I'm going to go ahead and commit my changes and push, and that should do that stuff for us, which is really great. Mm-hmm. So we'll just wait for that to happen.
Shayne, I got you on here in front of thousands of people to do a demo, and there's like a failure.
I'm sorry. Yeah, come to build, do a demo. It'll be awesome. Let me go to my source control. This is not embarrassing. All right.
It looks like the push was rejected because...
Look at that. It says checking for credentials and other secrets. Push was rejected because it contains one or more secrets. I didn't see a secret in there.
I didn't either.
All right, so it says program CS line 25. All right, so let's go back over there. Let's look at line 25. That's wrong scroll wheel. Look at that. So 25.
But it's commented.
It's commented out. So we actually have GitHub, the Azure Security DevOps set up, right? Mm-hmm. And what it does is it actually scans our code, kind of a pre-flight check, and says, you have a key here. Gotcha. And it's not going to let us check in. Nobody's ever checked in a key before, right? Mm-hmm. But I know when I've done it here, I get a ton of emails. I've got to roll back things. I got to figure out how to do all my Git history and thousands of command line things I've got to do. So what I can do now is I'm just going to actually remove that from our code. We'll just delete that. How about that? I'll make sure I save my file.
That should solve it, right?
I'm gonna fix it.
Easy.
Yeah, fixed. Sorry about that.
No more
Sorry
secret.
About the delay. And I'll commit and push that. Cool. Now we should be good, right?
Yep.
Good to go. We're pushing. Sorry for the delay. Okay, so the Azure DevOps Advanced Security is even smart enough to look at our history.
The Git history.
The Git history. So it knows that it's actually back there in the back, and we would commit that, and somebody could actually scaffold our history as well and snag that key and do bad things, right?
Gotcha.
And sniff our secret. So if we're not stopping these accidental leaks, right, we have a lot of production work we have to roll back, revoking things. It's time, it's money, it's a pain. So we don't want to do that. So luckily, Visual Studio allows us to look at all of our commits. I can see that I got these two here. So what I'm going to do is I will double click both of those, right? And I can just right click. Let's just do a squash. And let's change this to add cat service, something like that. We'll hit squash. Now I can push that. Now everything should be happy, I hope.
Awesome. So it's really cleaned up now.
Well, now
That's
it's
great.
never existed in our history. and I can actually go, I don't want to move icons, but what I want to do is go and look at our pipeline. So these are the pipelines that we've set up, and if I actually refresh this here, we can see now I've got my AdCat service. It's running. It's going to kick off all of that infrastructure scaffolding for us, which is really cool. Now, that's going to take some time, right? So what I want to actually do is I'm thinking that's pretty good. So I'm going to go back to Visual Studio, and we'll just create a PR. So I'll click that pull request, and I'll just put in my initials. That should be good enough for me. I'll create that. Now what that's going to do, since on our PR branch, we've created enough rules, we've put our rules here so that we want it to run through an actual load test.
Gotcha. So
Right.
basically, like, there's kind of a developer inner loop that does CI and things like that, and then the push to make sure that you don't push something like a secret, but then you even have a further kind of set of tests that you want to run as you get closer to production.
Yeah, so any PRs, we want to make sure that that's going to mirror our actual production environment. So we want to make sure, obviously, we're hitting our quality gates and stuff
Gotcha.
like that. So now that's going to take, again, some time because there's a lot of infrastructure for us to scaffold, more time we have today, about 15 minutes or so. So what I want to do is, let's go check out one that one of our colleagues done in the past when he was running through some additional tests. So he's got, it looks like on another branch, adding these customizations. And we look at the deployment, and what we're looking here is that actually we're using the Azure Developer CLI, and that scaffolds out everything. He could have done this on the command line with the AZD up, but we're using it also in our pipeline, and it ran that load test. And unfortunately, looks like it failed. So if I zoom in here, looks like we had a quality gate that we wanted a response time of 900 on those calls. We're hitting 21,000. Not so great. I'm not a performance person. It's been some time since I've been doing this.
Yeah.
So,
Do you want me to, I'm actually kind of familiar with load testing. Do you want me to check
good.
it out?
I think that falls in your
Okay.
group.
So I think if we just look at the load testing that's in progress here, then we should be able to scroll down and see the results. And yep, we can actually see here that this is where the regression
Swipe,
happened, and it's in the Get Categories API, right?
That's that code I wrote.
Yep, that was what you were working on. So if we go back to Visual Studio and we go to the Categories API.
I think it's in a program CS
Yeah,
where we
there we are.
implemented it, right? I
Yeah,
think
so it's
down
39, is that what it was?
We're looking at line 37, I think it was.
Okay,
Yep, right there.
yeah, there we are. Okay, so this is basically where we had the code that caused the performance regression,
Yeah,
right?
that category client I think needs to be a little bit more resilient. But
So
I'm not.
I don't really know this code base very well,
It's been a minute since I've written that.
but I'm kind of thinking maybe we can actually ask Copilot here.
There's some
So-
videos today I saw.
So I'm just going to ask, how can we make a category client, category client more resilient?
Yeah, I bet it's not even going to care if we spelled anything right.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I spelled something
All right.
wrong there.
See here.
All right, let's see what it says.
Drum roll. Holy
Oh,
smokes, look at all
wow.
that. So it says to use poly.
Wow,
Gives us some code here.
awesome.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So should we just take this and insert it in
Maybe
there?
maybe if we ask, like, can you add poly to category client for us?
Can you add poly to category client?
Let's see.
Let's see. This is live code, people.
Holy smokes.
All right, that's awesome. Okay, so let's just go ahead and insert that. And yes,
Where did it insert it?
it inserted it down below. This right here.
Let's
think we don't
let's
need-
copy that.
Okay.
And we'll just paste it on line 30, where were we at? We're at 30, 38
There we
maybe?
are. There we are.
Throw it on 38.
Okay.
See what happens there.
Okay, and then we can just comment out this one.
Yeah, sure. And we'll go ahead and check in those
We'll
code,
go ahead and check it in,
and we'll see if it fails.
and we can check it out.
Make sure we put a comment in there.
Yep. Fixed Shayne's slow code. All right. Give it all.
I might,
To go back to the load test, right? And
Yeah.
see kind of what kicks off. And if we go back,
Oh,
I'm in the wrong
other
browser.
window?
Other window, thank you very
Yeah.
much. If we go back to the pipelines, do we want to go to
That
this-
first one, and we
this
can see
first
it
one,
kicking
and
it off if
see
we
it
refresh, I
actually
think.
refreshing, yeah.
yeah, so we've got a
So now
new
we can
load
actually
run.
see- It's running again.
It's going to, PR automated for 102. It's probably going to running through some additional runs.
Awesome.
And we can look at Mark's previous run,
Yeah,
I
we
think,
can
too.
look at this one to see a passing load test. And we can go ahead and click on the load test just to see kind of what that looks like.
That was one that got skipped, but I think if we look at this other tab.
This one here.
Yeah,
There we go.
cool.
There we go. There we go.
Load
so we
test.
can go to the load test, and then we can see the, here we are, load test right there. And if we scroll down, we can actually see that
Look at that,
this is an
530.
example that passed. So it's really easy to basically just kind of use load testing in your CI/CD pipeline so that you can actually make sure that you have all of both the quality and security checks that we had in this demo.
And when it's all done and that PR gets merged, all the infrastructure that got spun up goes away. I don't have to, as a developer, have to worry about clicking things in a portal and trying to figure out what I'm not supposed to touch.
Just yet another headache that you don't have to think about so you
Exactly.
can focus on writing code.
That's right.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thanks, Shayne. Cool. So Shayne's demo highlighted secret scanning, but GitHub Advanced Security for Azure DevOps also offers code scanning and dependency analysis.